edit this out. Good evening and welcome to 1010, your top 10 news in 10 minutes. I'm Andy Hong. So, we had a 2-week rest because of the SAT. We hope that everyone did well, and good luck on PSATs tomorrow, which I am taking. And speaking of luck seems to be running out for many nations that were not yet infected with Ebola, as various Western European nations too have reported isolated cases. The World Health Organization, more commonly known as WHO, has been discovered to have missed critical chances to prevent Ebola from spreading when the first cases appeared in West Africa. However, the gross breach in public health security in the Dallas hospital that treated the late Thomas Eric Duncan is receiving the majority of attention. 2 nurses have been reported to have contracted Ebola while tending to Duncan, and nurses nationwide blame the Centers for Disease Control, or the CDC, for not supplying adequate training and equipment and not taking necessary measures to prevent the disease from escaping the hospital and into the public. Fortunately, Nina Pham, the nurse who was transferred to the hospital in Baltimore, is recovering. Over 4,500 have died so far. The coalition airstrikes on ISIS, recently named Operation Inherent Resolve, saw its first major success when the local sources in the contested city of Kobani reported that militant forces were being pushed back. Kobani, which is just south of the Turkey-Syria border, is a key strategic location for ISIS and has been under attack for a few weeks. The U.S. Air Force struck back on Wednesday and Thursday, conducting at least 14 airstrikes and, according to CNN figures, bringing the total number of air raids on the city to 122. Thanks to these airstrikes, Kurdish forces on the ground are reporting a shift in operations from defensive to offensive, although ISIS still controls some key buildings in the city. However, President Obama, citing the ISIS advances in Iraq's Anbar province, stated that we should expect a long-term campaign. The pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong seem to also be a long-term campaign, as protesters and police clashed again in the streets. Over 9,000 protesters gathered to try to push the police force out of the dense streets of Mongkok, and resulted in the arrest of 26 protesters. Various allegations of police brutality have surfaced. According to the Associated Press, Hong Kong Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying offered to hold peaceful talks to reform the city, but warned that the police would not hesitate to clear the streets of protesters no matter what the means. Yesterday, Apple released their new iPad Mini 3 and the more expensive iPad Air 2, which is apparently thinner than a pencil. Great! That means it comes with the same bendable features as the iPhone 6. However, the hardware didn't get as much of a media buzz as the software, as Apple and Google's cell phone encryption systems came under heavy attack by the FBI. Due to concerns over cybersecurity, Apple and Google have released new software that makes cell phone contents impossible to hack, except, according to the New York Times, real-time wiretaps such as phone conversations, emails, or text messages. FBI Director Jim Comey hinted at aggressive legislative action to stop these softwares, which would be obstacles in investigating phones as evidence for crime scenes. And as many of you wouldn't have known, midterm elections are coming up this November, and Colorado is hotly contested in the race for governor, senator, and House representative. Although the candidates have made strong statements on abortion, energy, and capital punishment, they are yet to mention the topic of legalized recreational marijuana. Most politicians and voters have shown remarkable apathy on the subject. Some Colorado politicians have shown some resistance to the law, but once profit from the young pot industry began to flow into the state treasury, most open resistance was silenced. Most unfortunate indeed. And yesterday, a New York medical examiner announced that the late comedian Joan Rivers died of therapeutic complications, or in other words, problems originating from medical procedures. A laryngoscopy to check Rivers' vocal cords went horribly wrong when the cords began to swell, cut off oxygen to the lungs, and caused a cardiac arrest. Rivers never recovered and died a week later. The doctor who performed the laryngoscopy, Dr. Gwen Korovin, denied allegations of performing an unauthorized procedure, although she was only there to observe another doctor overseeing Rivers, Dr. Lawrence Cohen, the director of the clinic where Rivers was hospitalized. On October 6th, there was a ferry crash that left 5 teenagers dead and 1 hospitalized in Irvine. The 16-year-old driver had not even started the process of obtaining a license. The crash occurred around 2:15 a.m. Saturday. Fire officials say the teens were returning from Knott's Scary Farm when their car suddenly drifted and hit a guardrail. Bradley Morales was the teen driver, was the only survivor. Morales had undergone surgery for brain damage and large skull fractures and is currently recovering. CHP spokesperson stated that it wasn't yet clear if Morales would be charged for causing the crash. Our hearts go out to the family that has lost their loved ones. And European soccer flipped upside down when four-time World Cup champion Germany's Deutsche Fußballbund was defeated by Poland 2-0 in Warsaw. This is the first time that the Poles ever beat the Germans, a feat made all the more remarkable considering the immense strength of the German lineup this year. The Poles managed to score 2 goals in the last 40 minutes of the game, while defending German shots with finesse. Although I'm a huge Germany fan myself, I must admit that the Poles do deserve this victory. The San Francisco Giants are on their way to their 3rd World Series in the past 5 years. After defeating the St. Louis Cardinals, the 6-3 victory is sure to go down in the record books as it ended with Travis Ishikawa's dramatic 3-run tie-breaking home run in the last inning. Next Tuesday, the Giants will face off against the Kansas City Royals, who have not been in the finals since 1985. Personally, since the Dodgers were destroying the Giants all season and the Cardinals managed to beat the Dodgers, I was hoping that the Cardinals would at least win against the Giants, but no such luck, I guess. Maybe next season. And finally, today's science news. Many of us associate drones with conflict, either the missile-bearing death robots over the Middle East or that drone that caused a brawl in the middle of a soccer match between Serbia and Albania. However, drones can be extremely useful for other more peaceful purposes as well. A group of researchers from the NOAA Fisheries and the Vancouver Aquarium used drones to film northern resident killer whales off the coast of British Columbia. With the drones, researchers were clearly able to determine the health of the dolphins and even recover shots of the animals headbutting. The researchers also showed the dynamics of the life in a killer whale pod, as researchers were able to witness the death of an unfortunately malnourished animal and the reaction of that animal's sibling, as well as determine which whales were pregnant and which whales were the newborns. And that was the top 10 news of this week. I'm Andy Hong. Make sure you like us on Facebook, YouTube, and we'll be back next week with more of your top 10 news of the week.